A wide shot of a grand Boston estate in 1875. Manicured gardens and iron gates, servants rushing through polished halls. Inside, a family gathers around a mahogany table, a father, a mother, two beautiful younger daughters. The eldest daughter, Eleanor, stands apart, her face turned toward a window, her hands folded quietly. Her family does not look at her. Close-up of Eleanor's face, 26 years old, with kind gray eyes and soft features that Boston society has cruelly labeled plain. Her skin is clear, her expression gentle, but she has learned to expect nothing from those who share her blood. She overhears her mother whispering about her as though she cannot hear. The words, "too plain," hang in the air like poison. The father announcing his plan with a cold smile. Eleanor will be sent west to a mountain man in Colorado Territory, a man desperate for a wife. The family laughs, imagining the rough cabin, the isolation, the humiliation of their ugly daughter, buried in the wilderness. Eleanor's hands tremble in her lap, but her face remains calm. She has learned not to give them the satisfaction of tears. Eleanor standing on a train platform, a single worn trunk at her feet, her family not bothering to see her off. A servant hands her a letter with the mountain man's name, Silas Webb, and an address that leads to nowhere civilized. She folds the letter into her pocket, lifts her chin, and boards the train alone. Behind her, Boston gleams, indifferent to her leaving. Days later, a stagecoach climbing into the Colorado high country, the air growing thin and cold, the trees growing thick and wild. Eleanor presses her face to the window, watching the world she knew disappear behind mountains she cannot name. The driver tells her no one has seen Silas Webb in years, that he lives alone with his horses and his silence. She says nothing, but something in her chest steadies. The stagecoach stopping at the end of a rutted trail, the driver pointing toward a small cabin nestled against a pine-covered ridge. Eleanor steps down, her boots sinking into mud, her trunk hauled behind her by the driver who wishes her luck and leaves quickly. She stands alone in the wilderness, wind tugging at her bonnet, and for the first time in her life, no one is watching her fail. A figure emerging from the cabin door, Silas Webb, a mountain man of 40 years, broad-shouldered and bearded, his eyes sharp and dark beneath a weathered hat. He stops when he sees her, his hand on the doorframe, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief. He was told a bride was coming. He did not believe it. He'd stopped believing in anything years ago. Close-up of Silas's face as he walks toward Eleanor, his boots heavy on the pine needles, his eyes scanning her face with an intensity that makes her breath catch. He expected a woman who would turn away, who would weep, who would demand to be sent back to Boston. But Eleanor stands her ground, her hands at her sides, her gray eyes meeting his without flinching. She says nothing. She simply waits. Eleanor speaking first, her voice steady despite her trembling hands, telling him she knows she is not what he hoped for. She tells him she is plain, she is practical, she can cook and sew and keep a house. She tells him she will not be a burden, and if he wants her to leave, she will leave. Silas stares at her for a long moment, and then he does something no one in Boston has ever done. Silas stepping forward and lifting her trunk onto his shoulder, nodding toward the cabin, his voice low and rough. He tells her the cabin leaks when it rains, the roof needs patching, and the garden is overrun with weeds. He asks if she can fix any of that. She blinks, then nods. He almost smiles and says, "Then you're not leaving." Inside the cabin, Eleanor looking around at the rough walls, the dusty shelves, the single bed pushed against the corner. Silas watches her from the doorway, waiting for her to cry, to complain, to reveal the disappointment he expects. Instead, she rolls up her sleeves, finds a broom, and begins to sweep. He watches her for a full minute, then turns away to tend the horses, something strange moving in his chest. Weeks passing, the cabin transforming under Eleanor's hands, curtains stitched from flour sacks, a garden cleared and planted, bread rising on the hearth each morning. Silas finds himself watching her from the barn, from the woods, from his chair by the fire. She is not what Boston called her. She's not plain at all. She's the most beautiful thing he has ever seen, and he does not know how to tell her. One evening, Eleanor's sitting on the porch mending a shirt by lantern light, her fingers moving with practiced ease. Silas sits beside her, close but not touching, his hands resting on his knees. She asks him why he never married, and he is quiet so long she thinks he will not answer. Then he tells her he never found anyone worth giving up to silence for. Until now. Close-up of Eleanor's face as his words settle over her, her hands stilling on the mending, her eyes lifting to meet his. No one has ever looked at her the way he is looking at her now, as though she matters, as though she is precious, as though he cannot quite believe she is real. Her lips part, but no words come. She has never been seen before. Months later, spring arriving with wildflowers and warm winds, the cabin no longer a shelter but a home. Eleanor walks through the garden she planted, her hands covered in soil, her face lifted to the sun. Silas watches her from the fence, and when she catches him watching, she does not look away. She waves. He raises his hand slowly, awkwardly, and waves back. A letter arriving from Boston, carried by a dusty rider who traveled 3 weeks to reach them. Eleanor's family has heard she is thriving. They want her to return, not because they miss her, but because their fortunes have shifted and a wealthy mountain rancher's wife might be useful after all. Eleanor reads the letter twice, then hands it to Silas without a word. Silas reading the letter, his jaw tightening, his hands crumpling the paper. He looks at Eleanor, and for the first time, he sees fear in her eyes, not of him, but of being taken from him. He steps forward, takes her face in his rough hands, and tells her she belongs here. He tells her Boston can have its pretty daughters and its cold mansions. He tells her she is his home. Eleanor writing her reply to Boston, her hands steady, her words simple. She writes that she is not the daughter they sent away. She writes that she has found a life, a home, a man who sees her. She writes that she will not be returning, ever. She signs her name, Eleanor Webb, and slips the letter into the writer's hand without a moment's hesitation. Months later, word spreading back down the valley, not of Eleanor's shame, but of the thriving ranch, the warmth of the cabin, the way the mountain man smiles now when he speaks her name. Boston hears the stories and stops laughing. Her family looks at their beautiful younger daughters, now spoiled and unmarried, and wonders what they threw away. But Eleanor does not wonder. She already knows. A final wide shot of the ranch at golden hour, the cabin warm with firelight, the garden heavy with vegetables, horses grazing in the corral. Eleanor stands on the porch with her hand resting on Silas's arm, her face turned toward him as he speaks to her, his expression soft and full of quiet wonder. Behind them, the mountains rise purple and eternal, and the sun catches their faces, illuminating the kind of beauty Boston could never understand.